Hey, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
Hello, hi.
Okay, we're just gonna go straight into the icebreaker. Normally, we would have a would you rather question or a top bottom verse question, but tonight we're gonna switch it up. I just wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper and into getting to know who you both are. So I wanted to just kind of give like a reflection question, and the question is that I want you both to think of a time when you experienced racism for being Black from a family member. Like whether it's in your childhood or a recent time, but just a quick reflection of just an experience that you want that if you have capacity to share that you don't mind sharing with us.
Teyonna?
Me to go first?
Okay, Teyonna.
One time, the first thing that came to my mind when you said that, I remember playing with some friends. So I used to be a part of a dance troupe. I grew up on a military base, and every year around Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we would kind of gather all the Islander families. And we actually made like a full-on club, and we'd put on a dance performance, and we try to, represent all the Polynesian islands. And so we would learn dances from all over. And it was always a great time of fellowship. We'd get together. We would go on trips and stuff together. But I remember a very early time, it was probably one of the first years we danced. We were the like little girls, they would split up all the dances, and we'd be kind of split in gender and age group. And I remember the little girls, we weren't dancing at the time, so we were kind of just got to hang out. And that's what a lot of these dance practices would turn into. It's just like the kids kind of hanging out, and we all became really close because we went to school together and all that. And the little girls, we were all sitting together, and I forget what we were playing. Like, I just remember we were playing this game, and one of the girls excluded me and one other girl. Her name was also TC. And she told us that we couldn't be on their team because we were meuli. I remember that was when I learned what that word meant, or at least what that was supposed to mean. She goes, not the meuli ones. And we just, like, at the time, I remember I didn't really know what had happened. Of course, I was like mad because as a kid, I'm just like, well, I didn't want to play with y'all anyways. But it hurt to not get to hang out. But I know me and Titi became really close, after that. And we haven't even really talked about that day since. I don't even know the girl who like pointed us out and said not them. I don't even remember her name or where she went. But I think I was about like 7 or 8. And later, obviously now, like knowing what that word meuli was supposed to mean, and realizing now how she meant it. Yeah, I don't know. I think back and was like, wow, no, it really used to be around me, and I just was too young to understand.
Right. What's something like the Teyonna now would want to say to that moment?
To that moment, I feel like I try to get out of this habit of, downplaying it and saying like, what I've been trying to hold myself to, today is to not respond to things that happen by like, oh, it's okay, or it's all right, made it through. I think I made it, and I found success beyond that, despite that moment, not because of that moment.
Come on.
I would tell myself to not, find strength from that. My strength came from more beautiful places than that.
That's what's up.
That's what's up.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Teyonna. How about you, Will?
For me, there was quite a few of them, but the first thing that came to my mind was there was this big Fight Love event. We were in Germany, and like we were all supposed to sing this song, and I was right up in the front because I was the smallest, well, one of the smallest ones. So all the young kids were in the front, and then they kind of stepped them up. Well, I was smaller than all of them, so I was supposed to be right there in the middle because that's the way that they had it. They had it like that, and it was the same thing. Like, well, the Maori dude can't be in the front, but they were speaking in Samoan, and back then, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I understood Samoan. Well, I understood a lot of it. I knew enough to know what the conversation was about. So I don't know if it was the choir director. I don't know who it was. There was just a bunch of people came together. We were kids. We were just, following directions. And that's what they were like, not, you know, the black dude can't be in the front like that. So I ended up, even though I was shorter, you couldn't even see me after they finished putting me. I was like in the third row. I was still kind of in the middle, but it was like I was blocked out where it's, you couldn't see me at all. So that's the first thing that came to my mind with that. And it's like Teyonna says, like you get used to, well, I got used to, oh, it's okay, but I understood what they were saying, so I was hurt. My auntie that brought me there, she was like, she was livid about it, and she was going off on the people and all of that. And they were like, "Oh, well, we didn't mean it like that. It's okay. He can sit over there because And they argued that that the kid I was standing next to was my cousin, so I was supposed to feel more comfortable next to standing next to him. Oh, and my other cousin, she was over there. So, but that was their excuse. So at that time, I was like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe they're right. It's not all like that." So you do, or I did, get used to making excuses all the time. We're trying to because that's easier to deal with than be like, "Oh, wow, this grown person feels like that about me." Like, and then after this, they're supposed to take us all somewhere, and I'm supposed to trust this guy. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
That
yeah,
part.
and that happened a lot. That kind of stuff happened a lot.
Yeah.
So that's just the first thing that came to my mind.
Mm. Wow. Wow. What's something that Will right now would want to say to that moment?
I guess the same thing Teyonna said, like, just let those kind of things make you stronger. Um, I wish I would have spoke up then because the Will today I would not have stayed there. I'm up, I don't have to be there.
Right.
And that's kind of how I dealt with things, later on in my life. Just like, okay, I don't try to change people's mind. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I'll say my piece, but I'm not going to argue about my experience or how I feel about what you're doing because people will try to do that. They'll try to argue you down about what they meant about it and all of that. I don't have an argument for that. I'm telling you, I don't like it. So I'm out. So, and
Yeah.
if I could have then, especially with my auntie like going off, I would have just been like, why are you don't have to argue. Let's go or let me go. I don't have to be here. But
Mm.
getting into that habit of making excuses for grown people, especially, um, that's nothing that I would do today.
Yeah.
Did that same kind of pattern follow you? Because I heard you say earlier that there were a lot of different instances where you have experienced racism just in our community for being a part Black.
Right.
How was your response? Did it stay the same way throughout your life in terms of
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, until I got old enough to be like, okay, I'm old enough now where I could actually just get on an airplane and be up. So, but for the whole time, it's just easier to just be like, make excuses for them. You're making excuses for grown people who should know better.
Mhm.
So, and that's what I did all the time. And that, I guess it was what is that? Self-protection or
Yeah.
defense mechanism. That's a defense mechanism, I guess. So
Mhm.
that's what I did because I still have to be. I grew up as a Samoan kid, but I was half Black.
Mhm.
So what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna argue every time? Today I would do it, but as a little kid, that's a scary thing to be. And Samoans don't play. You get a smack real quick. So,
Yeah. For
or at
even
least I
saying
did.
anything.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you know, that's just how I handled it. I made excuses for other people.
Mm. How about you, T? Because I'm sure you had other experiences as well. Like, what was your coping
Yeah.
with situations?
I think what I always reflect on and what I've always found beautiful is that there was never a time where anyone could actually make me feel shame,
Mm.
feel bad for who I was. Like it's interesting. I was reflecting on how Will phrased it, that he grew up a Samoan kid and he happened to be half Black. Because I felt like at times, I felt like I grew up the opposite. Like I felt like I grew up Black and then got to be half Samoan. But when I think back on it, it's like I really think that both cultures were fully celebrated in my household.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was the one Black person who'd show up to every family function with his matching shirt to all of our pulukasis, like, and he roll with it. Like he was really that dude. And my dad was always someone who could command a room and command respect, and everybody loved him. So I guess, you know, I think when I reflected on it, what would hurt was when I felt like that respect went with him. Like as soon as my dad was out the room, that was when it, you know, everybody felt more comfortable with showing those true colors or showing that disrespect. But it was just so instilled in me, and my dad used to tell me that all the time, that at least the areas where I grew up, like no one knew what Samoa was. You know, if anything, I grew up wishing that I had stood up for my my Samoan side more, because I think I got so used to telling people like, oh, it's like Hawaii, because that's how, you know, they understood it.
Right.
And I think, you know, my dad did a really good job when I was growing up of telling me like, no, people are always going to see you as Black, no matter whatever else you are. People see you as Black. And I think I was fortunate enough to have that presence and to carry that with me. Like that just really stuck, and I carried that with me. So no one ever made me feel bad. And I never felt like I was really making excuses for people. So if anything, now I'm recognizing, you know, the little ways in which, you know, like people's hearts weren't really true.
Yeah.
And now I can pick it out as like these like small nuances. But I don't feel like I ever really struggled with standing up for my Blackness. But, you know, I think in terms of that, and what we'll probably get into this conversation, is I did feel like when my dad wasn't around, that kind of left people's minds, almost as if like my Blackness could, you know, disappear, or people could forget it. There was that erasure when I was around folks, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. You said something really key and really important, and I want to just go to you real quick, Will. Do you relate to what Teyonna said about her father telling her that she'll always be seen as Black? Was that a similar conversation in your upbringing that your family had with you?
Not from him so much, because he has that kind of a military view where it's like we're all brothers and we're all sisters. At least, you know, I don't know if you call it military or not, but he doesn't. I hate when people say I don't see color, but he definitely sees color, and he lets, you know, he says you're Black, you're Samoan. You know, he let me know, you know, I'm Black, I'm Samoan, but and he just let his view was that everybody's equal. You know, everybody gets treated the same, but that's when you go out to the real world, it's kind of not like that. But on military bases, that's how I felt. Like everybody around me was different. I wasn't just always with the Samoans. When I left home, everybody around me was somebody different,
Right.
and that's how I was used to growing up. So I guess that's what his mindset was. So, you know, I think the things that he told me was more idealistic instead of realistic. You know, and I feel like that, you know, that's what I want. The things that he taught me, that's what I want. And when my first outlook on things when I respond is that idealistic point of view, but it's probably not realistic, and I get that a lot. So people are looking at me like, come on, bro.
It could be optimistic too,
Yeah, optimistic as well, but it's in times of trouble like right now,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really hold
It's
up.
hard to be optimistic. For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to reflect and recollect and call on those moments. We understand that can be triggering, and it could do something to you. And so we just want to say thank you for doing that, so that it can really set the tone for the conversation that we're going to have.
Okay, can I say something before we
Of course,
start?
please.
I want to thank you guys for like bridging it, because bridging this conversation from Polynesian to Juneteenth and the African American community, actually Black period, because like there's a lot of different types of Black, Somali Blacks, Somali Samoan, just all kinds, and I thank you guys for bridging this conversation from the Samoan community to Black, because it doesn't really matter what kind of Black it seems like, because anywhere you go, Black people are, seems like to be the ones mainly discriminated against.
Yeah.
I appreciate this conversation.
Likewise. Absolutely.
Off top, if we can, we're going to do it. And thank you for saying that, because there's been a conversation too with our Black Islanders, folks from Melanesia, like from Fiji and onward. And there's like a heavy conversation on Twitter about Black, like them seeing themselves as Black, but not like in the context of like we say for instance, in America, right, where all this is happening, and not in the context in other countries as well, but that they are Black themselves. Mm-hmm. And there was a really eloquent thread that was made by a Fijian woman talking about how, there's been folks, PI folks, Pacifica folks from America, making her feel some type of way because she was saying she was identifying as Black, right? She's Black Fijian. And we'll share the thread, in the show notes and things like that. But she made some really clear and great points about how Black Lives Matter, right? Mm-hmm. This whole thing it's all Black lives, right? And there's so many different contexts that we can fold in to that. We're not going to have that conversation because, we're not Melanesian, but definitely want to acknowledge that Blackness is global, right? And it is the most targeted, no matter which country. And so thank you very much, Uz, for
well, with that though, like when I was in Hawaii, people know what Melanesian is over there. So when the jokes start flying and stuff like that, that's what you Melanesian looking, this, that, So they didn't say Meuli because, maybe they were Hawaiian or maybe they were Guamanian or something like that. But, when they started talking, it was like, oh, wow. But you know what they're talking about. The undertone is you Black. So maybe that's why he feels like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's, I got that melanin, that beautiful melanin over there,
Yeah, melanin.
Thank y'all so much. What's up? What it do, Kaipo? Welcome to For the Cultures podcast, y'all. We've been missing for a minute, but for a good reason. And we just been taking our time with things. Things have been popping off, COVID, Black Lives Matter, just so many things happening in the world. And as for the cultures, this has always been our stance. Black Lives Matter. We've always had these conversations with great folks like Afro Teyenne, with Tanel, with so many other folks to just have a conversation and understand the intersections in which Pacifica folks, Blackness meets and what that looks like, what those experiences are like. And so we have our wonderful guests with us in the Zoom. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Teyonna, for being here. And real quick, before y'all get started, shout out to Talavo Almavai for letting us use his Zoom account so we can do this. I see you, bro. I see you. Yeah, can I have you both introduce yourselves? Will, we'll go with you first since you called out TT.
Well, I was
that reflection.
first, but well, I'm Will Fanene, and we talked about this yesterday. Like, I do have a government name, but I don't go by that because, like I said, it's a slave name, and I did my research and all of that kind of stuff. So unless I'm collecting a check or something like that, I represent my mom's side, with her name, Fanene. I've been an entrepreneur for several years. You asked me how old I was earlier in Samoan, and I'm up there. I'll just say that. And I was at the 40 Club last year, and but I thank God I'm here. I wrote grant proposals for like maybe 5-6 years, and I started teaching people how to do that. Then I started did music for a little bit with my cousin here in St. Louis, in the St. Louis area. And then from there, I went to, I had a vitamin company. And after the vitamin company, I started, I really wanted to get into learning how to speak Samoan. And once I figured it out, I said, wow, I want everybody to know this trick that I figured out. Because I feel like we have a cultural crisis in the Samoan community because a lot of people cannot speak Samoan, and they're Samoan.
Right.
Right here, bro.
So it's like, man, I really want other people to join me to help change the culture in terms of speaking Samoan and learning the culture and everything like that. So I started developing an app, and I'm gonna start trying to do this Zoom thing once I figure it out. We're gonna have classes all the time, and so that's my passion at this moment is Samoan culture. I grew up as a Samoan kid. I am African American and Samoan, and I guess I moved here almost 20 years ago, and so I moved away from the Samoan culture. And but now it's like, I want to learn Samoan, or not learn Samoan. I want to help other people learn Samoan at this time. So that's where I'm at.
Just a quick few follow-up questions. Where's here? Where are you located at?
Oh, I'm in Southern Illinois, right outside of St. Louis. It's in a college town called Glen Carbon, Illinois.
Okay. And what's the app called that you're developing?
Oh, the app is called Mako,
Mm-hmm.
and it's MATOU, and you can find it on the Apple Store, and what's the other one? Android.
Oh, who knows what the other one is?
Like my
you said Apple and it's good.
Right.
And
so,
last question is, which parent is Black and which parent is Samoan?
My dad is Black and my mom is Samoan.
Okay.
And they're from New Uli. Shout out to everybody in New Uli.
Oh my goodness, not the New Ulians.
The
New Ulians, what it do? Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
All right, so we got TT in the building. TT, can you please do us the honor of introducing yourself?
Absolutely. So Teyonna Jarman. I go by T, TT, all kinds of nicknames. I love nicknames, so feel free. What is the prompt? So I grew up a military kid, half Black, half Samoan. My mom is from Pango Pango. My dad's from Kinston, North Carolina. But they both joined the Army and met in the Army. So I was a military kid my whole life, all through high school.
That North Carolina.
I was actually born in Germany. So we lived in Germany for like 8 years or something. So I lived in Grafenbeer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What about you? I think you were in Germany.
I was in Hanau and Frankfurt.
Okay, yeah. I know where Frankfurt's at. I went to, I grew up in Germany, went to elementary school, and then we came stateside. And I've actually been in California for the longest. I've been in California since third grade, just in SoCal. So I came up to the Bay Area for college, and I graduated class of 2018 from Stanford. And I've been out here in the Bay, and I've actually appreciate you. I've actually
That's my.
No, I've started to make a home in the Bay. I've started to find community, and it's cool. I think I've met some of my closest friends up here. Started a nonprofit organization. We're working on being an official nonprofit, but I started a nonprofit organization. That's actually how I met Danny Boy. And from Danny, I've been introduced to all kinds of dope people, obviously for the cultures and Bex. I appreciate y'all for having me on here. Y'all introduced me to Afro-Teyenne. Shout out to Deja. And then I believe Afro-Teyenne was the first person that I saw that reposted one of Will's videos. So then I started following Will not too long ago, because I've also been trying to learn more Samoan. So this all it's so cool that all of this is coming full circle. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Right now, I work for fintech startup, financial tech startup in San Francisco. But I say my passion is more along the lines of storytelling, collecting other stories and sharing those stories, writing my own stories. So I write, I also sing. I'm really into just entertainment in general. So I consume a lot of entertainment, movies, television, books, all that good stuff. So I think if I could tomorrow, which I guess I shouldn't say if I could, if I was really motivated to tomorrow, I would definitely be on that wave, and just trying to create content. But I got student loans to pay, so yeah. But I like what I do. It's cool. So I'm definitely glad to be here, and glad to be sharing this moment with y'all, telling my story, obviously, and also learning some more about Will. So this is definitely a passion project for me as much as it is an interview. So I appreciate y'all.
That's right. It's a Talanoa. We just chopping it up, okay? I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. What's the name of the organization that you and your friends started up?
Yeah, so it's Mission Me, and the Me stands for My Empowerment. Really how it started was I randomly met this other Samoan girl on social media, and we met up, just trying to network and meet more people around here in the Bay, since I had just graduated from school and I had just moved out here. And we ended up having like a 3-hour conversation, just honestly, just about like being women and being young and being Islander, and trying to figure it out. And I think in the moment, both of us were kind of like, what do we do with this? Like, I felt like I had really wanted to find a way to continue having conversations like that. And it kind of fit into some of the projects she's already worked on. So it's funny, in the very first meeting we ever had, Danny Boy was there. So that was we kind of put it together, and we started off with just doing some like local events, like meetups and retreats for other women and women of color. And we built our team up, and we're going for it now. So we do host like weekly events right now. And before COVID, we were doing quarterly retreats where we would invite women in, and we spend a lot of time like crafting these activities and facilitating these conversations. And it's all about how do we empower the women of color in our community. So that's been a blessing that kind of fell into my lap, but definitely I think it fits right into my passion, like I said, telling stories and collecting those stories.
Yeah, I really like that one that you guys did with donating prom dresses.
Yeah, that was actually insane. We did a prom dress drive essentially, and we were just going to collect the dresses and donate them, and then we thought about like, what if we just did like a pop-up shop? So we would collect the dresses and then also let girls kind of come through and shop. Like it was kind of like a pop-up thrift shop. Then it blew up. Like we didn't even expect it to be all that great, but I think we got over 150 dresses from all over. Like people were mailing us dresses when they found out what we were doing. And then there was about 40 plus. It was about 40 to 50 young ladies from all over the Bay. We had people that were driving out an hour to come and pick up, and they could come and they picked up free prom dresses, and we were able to do raffles. Prom, we just recognized like prom can be such a expensive time. You know, you got to find the dress and you got to get your hair done and your makeup. And so we were actually able to get like hairstylists and nail artists from around the Bay to, donate their services, and we raffled that off. And it was super, super dope. We didn't expect it to blow up like that. And obviously, unfortunately, shout out to all the girls who came through. They weren't able to go to prom this year, which was crazy.
They got a nice dress.
They got a nice dress, and we still got more. So shameless plug for anybody who wants a dress, because they're all just sitting in my garage and have nowhere to go.
That's right. Hey, I just want to say thank both of y'all, because y'all both putting on for the cultures.
Yeah.
All the cultures, okay? And so thank y'all very much. It means a lot to have y'all here. Tanner?
Yeah. Okay, well, we definitely, I'm really eager to kind of jump into our conversation, but first and foremost, we usually do this thing where we really just kind of set intention. It's like our little grounding segment, and it's one of my favorites because this is where we just get to come back to a place of just, alleviating some nerves, kind of shaking some jitter off, and just, being reminded of like why we're doing this. And it's all about setting intention and creating a good space where we feel grounded, and we can do this through sharing the scripture, through sharing a proverb, doing a prayer, whether it be in your native language or in English, your favorite quote, book, a Tupac song, anything, but whatever is just kind of speaking to you. We want to kind of give this opportunity to our guest. And if this is something that is like speaking to you, and there's something in your spirit that you feel like you would like to share with us, please share with us. And if not, we would go ahead and come up with something. Danny Boy always has like a few prayers in his pockets, ready to go, fully loaded.
I have something. Yeah, I have something that on my heart today that I've been working on. So it's a quote from a book called Beyond Survival: Strategies and Stories from the Transformative Justice Movement. And the quote, let me pull it up. Quote is, "Numerous disastrous harms that could have destroyed you did not quite destroy you. You live. Beyond that, you must also acknowledge that the relationships, organizations, and spaces you have moved through have survived you, a person like other people, shaped by systems of harm." Breathe on that.
Yeah, say loud, right? Breathe on that.
What's the name of that book?
Let me pull it up again. It's a long name. So it's Beyond Survival: Strategies and Stories from the Transformative Justice Movement.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teyonna. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's powerful. Anything coming up for y'all with that quote?
I think for me, when I was thinking on it today, I think it really sets, that while we can recognize, the harm that's done on us, and recognize, the things that have strengthened us, it's also important to recognize the ways in which we've harmed others, we've harmed the world. We all have responsibility and accountability for that. And it doesn't have to be anybody's fault, because we're all brought up in a certain system. I like that the quote says, like, we all come up through systems of harm.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important for us to just be, cognizant of all of it.
Thank you. Thank you for setting that intention with us, because it's definitely fitting to the conversation that we want to have, which is today's conversation, today's Talanoa, around addressing anti-Blackness in the concrete ocean. I want to just give a quick definition of concrete ocean. When we say concrete ocean, I got that from Professor Levalasi Loyan, who wrote in her thesis, she described Samoans who grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and in the urban areas as the concrete ocean, because a lot of, I believe the statistic was that like 90% of Samoans living in San Francisco lived in public housing.
Mm-hmm.
And so just as a way to describe that, like, folks are connected to the ocean, but also connected to the concrete here that they, that they were raised up in. And that for me, I kind of like unpack that more to see as like, I connect with that in terms of us existing in this diaspora, right? And so that's our Talanoa for today. And our intention with this whole conversation is to not take up space, but to offer up this space that we have, this platform, so that we can have this conversation for folks to consume and apply. Real talk, you know what I mean? Through storytelling, through your personal experiences, because we know that that's how we learn, just the way we've been learning, And so off the bat, something connected to the reflection that we did earlier, we want to draw on that conversation more and address anti-Blackness in our homes and in our communities. You know what I mean? And so y'all alluded a little bit to experiences you had, but I was wondering if you could speak to what it was like growing up.
Growing up, like, as mixed?
Yeah, growing up mixed, growing up Samoan and Black. I know we kind of touched on it about, the mistreatment y'all experienced, and like, what was it like amongst your family and your homes, being part Black? I know I have cousins who are part Black, nieces, nephews, aunties, uncles, and there's always that racist, not tone, it's just straight up racist shit that folks are saying about them. You know what I mean? And I've even had to like stop some of my younger cousins in their tracks and be like, hey, don't say that shit, because your dumbass has nieces and nephews who are part Black. You want to say that shit? You know what I mean? And so like just trying to, just having that, knowing that it exists. And I know that it doesn't only exist amongst, my family. I've heard other folks say it. So just wanting to hear from y'all as folks who I was separated from that experience. You know what I mean? It wasn't my experience. And so we want to just dive into that with y'all and hear, what came up for y'all. What was that like?
I think for me, it was always just about, there was this balance of, you even though you know what to do, the protocol, all of that, you might not be accepted when you do it, So a lot of it, the undertone was just acceptance. So as a kid, you're not thinking, okay, I'm Black, I'm Samoan. You're not thinking that. You're just being a kid. So you do what you're told to do and all of that. So when you're with your family, everyone's used to you. Then when you get out of that, or people come in to that, now it's always a new environment. And you're the one, as, the half Black, or, the Ka'akauli, or whatever, you're always the one that's seemingly having to make the adjustments. Now, even when your parents are there to, check people, like Teyonna said earlier, when her dad left the room, it's almost like, okay, now the vultures can come and have their way. So when she said that, I was like, man, I didn't even think about it like that when he left, because he's you know, he was a master sergeant when he left, he, you know, and all of that, and everybody, all of these Samoans were under him, everybody respected him, but it was almost like when he left the room, or not even that, when he turned his back.
Talking all that shit up.
Right, when he turned his back, you know, they ain't even got to be gone long. I saw stuff that he didn't see yet.
Mm.
So, I mean, it didn't take long, but that was, like I said before, that was another generation. Maybe it still happens now. I don't know. You know, I'm over here, so, but yeah, it's acceptance. That was the main thing right there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes what I've been reflecting on is like pure ignorance, this idea like ignorance is bliss, and bliss is privilege. And when I think back, you know, sometimes I have this love and hate relationship with how like real my family can be, specifically my parents, because I do think that my parents did try to, you know, teach me about the ways of the world, you know, before I got to experience it. And I know we had a conversation before about maybe it's different because of gender, and you know, obviously I grew up feminine facing female, and that's how my parents saw me. And that was always, you know, the kind of conversation was that, you know, they were preparing me for the world. So I think had it not been for my parents making it known, especially my dad, that like racism existed and racism was something that, you know, he's like, don't make any mistake. Like you gonna see it. You're gonna go through it. And even for me, you know, as a Black person too, when I started to engage in the conversation with other Black people and recognizing that I have privilege in being light-skinned and being, you know, like having a closer proximity to whiteness because of my mixed race. Like that was something that I didn't necessarily even understand as a kid, because as a kid, I was always just told like, you're Black, and people would see me as Black. And yet I think because of that too, I did have this kind of understanding that, you know, because I didn't speak the language, and because, you know, I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but like I grew up with freckles, and like my hair, you know, was blacker than everybody else's. You know, it was frizzier or poofy, or you know, at one point like I cut it all off, and then it didn't really like grow anymore. And it was things like that I think everybody just kind of there were these like, I felt like these like physical markers people could look at me and tell at that point. And because I felt like I was made to be hyper aware of that at such a young age, I think I was able to like pick it out more. And sometimes, you know, again, a love-hate relationship with that, because I wish I hadn't known. Maybe I would have enjoyed being a kid for a little bit longer. And I wouldn't have picked it out. But yeah, I think, you know, again, because I didn't know the language, it took me a while before I learned what people meant when they said meuli. But I always learned that meuli meant Black person, the same way I learned that palangi meant white person. And I didn't even know until maybe 6 months ago that those were not the correct terms to describe people. And so even with that, again, like this idea that like ignorance was bliss, I kind of fell in line and honestly was complicit in a lot of stuff. I had cousins, and I didn't realize they were being racist when they made comments about, you know, having darker skin tones, and we would joke about being in the sun too long. And you know, I had just gotten so used to that culture that I didn't even know that those things were racist. I obviously knew what racism was, but I was taught, and I think I learned like racism looks like one thing. I learned what racism could look like from white people. But I didn't realize not just racism, but like what anti-Blackness was. I didn't have, you know, a sense of that growing up. And it's just been crazy to continue to learn and learn from my Black community, and to start seeing it and picking that out now, remembering things from my childhood. Like, man, if I would have known what that meant back then, I do think it would have really, really bothered me. But overall, I really resonate with what Will said about balance. It was a balance just for me to feel like I could be both at the same time. If I was around Black people, I wanted to feel like, man, like I could prove I was Black. I had to know all the movies and the songs, and then vice versa when I was with Samoan people. But I think because I think right off the bat I was like, well, I don't speak Samoan, so it was like real easy. If they wanted to like weed me out, sniff me out, that was like, they would ask me how I'm doing in Samoan, and I would have to answer back in English. But I think overall, like, my mom never really used to blink an eye. None of her kids, my older sister can speak Samoan, but none of her kids learned Samoan. And my mom, she used to just whatever, like, I didn't even realize there was a problem with that until later. Right. So, I don't know. I don't think I was like hyper aware of anti-Blackness. I was always just worried about, like Will said, being accepted, but being accepted, as a full Samoan, being seen as a full Samoan. But I didn't even realize until recently that anti-Blackness was also a barrier in that, not just, language and other things, but also like, because I was half Black, that was a barrier for me to be accepted.
Right. Do y'all feel accepted in the Pacific Islander community?
Me personally, it just depends who's there, who's in the room, because a lot of the younger people, if it's mostly younger people, yeah. If it's a lot of older people, no. But that was my upbringing and my experience, because I guess that's also my prejudice too, because since that was my experience, I'm assuming, everyone in the room is like that. And then my defense mechanism is just assume that everybody is. So when you hear it, then it's, because it always happens, or it always used to happen.
Yeah.
Then, I won't be so shocked. It's just like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm out. And I do that every time. So, but yeah, with the younger, the generation now, yeah, it's not like it was before. At least that's how I feel. So.
Thank you.
Did you ever, Teyonna, did you ever feel like you had to speak the language or dress a certain way or get certain tattoos in order to fit in the Pacific Island community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and again, this came because I was so young. Like, my understanding was to be able to perform, in order to prove that for people. But I think what afforded me, the I guess feeling comfortable, and what I'm just reflecting on now, hearing from Will, is that because I grew up around my family and around Pacific Islanders, so much of my family actually have been blessed to, like, we would run into them when we would move around. So I've actually always grown up with at least, an uncle. Like, my mom's siblings were always around. All of my mom's siblings joined the Army. Just like, we're a full military family. I have an extended family that were in the military as well, but somehow we always just kind of ran into folks. So there was never a shortage of Pacific Islanders and that culture around me, which is why I always felt like it was celebrated. But I guess I never thought about, when the older folks would come around, whether or not I would be more sensitive to that. But now that I think about it, I guess I was. I know for myself, like, I've been to the islands, but not during a time in my life where I could really remember it. I was super young. So all of my experience and being around other Pacific Islanders has been like here in the US, and everyone was, speaking English, and everybody had adapted to the Western American culture so much that, in that sense, I felt like we were all kind of the same. But I definitely, like, you know, as soon as my cousins started to get tattoos, like, I definitely got one because it was like, well, now that's what being someone looks like. And if I don't continue, you know, to fit that mold, then it's going to make it even more obvious. And I when I think back, I think I definitely did get my first tattoo when I was 16. And it was because like all my cousins were getting them, and I'm like, well, man, everybody's gonna ask me like, where's mine at? And I'm gonna have to explain to them that my Black dad don't play that. And so I definitely felt pressured to do that. And yeah, I think when I look back, like none of my like immediate cousins could speak Samoan either, so I would find my community in that. But definitely when I was around older folks, my grandma, she didn't care. My grandma would sit there and speak Samoan, and she knew I didn't understand, but she wouldn't let up, right? And I would just feel like, man, this lady's bullying me. Like she knows I can't do this. Yeah, I think definitely in those moments, I would start to feel the pressure, feel more insecure about it, for sure.
Teyonna, do you feel accepted in the Pacific Islander community?
I was about to say wholeheartedly yes, and then Will answered, and I was like, oh man, let me think about it. I do think that, you know, maybe it's the tattoos, maybe it's because I can speak to certain experiences. I will say that, like, I always have to give more information, right? Like, I kind of sense that when I'm around most, like, Islander folks that I don't really know, like, they don't really trust me right off the bat. They're like, oh, you Samoan? Cool. Where's your mom from? Okay. What's your last name? Right. And it's never like, what's, you know, so.
Yeah, they do the investigating.
Right. I do think that I do have to kind of still like prove it in that sense. And yet at the same time, I don't know, maybe it's just what I learned, but I've never carried myself really as shying away from, you know, from owning who I am, like being who I am in terms of being someone in Black. Like, you know, if anyone were to ask me, and if, on any given day, I feel like half the t-shirts I wear is like, I'm Samoan and Black. Like, it's like, I like exude that. And it's like unapologetic. So I don't know, maybe that keeps people from like really trying to make me feel bad about it. Overall, I would feel like I'm accepted, but maybe I just can't pick it out. I don't know.
I could dig that. What does addressing anti-Blackness look like among your families? Have you had to have these kind of conversations with your folks?
For me, I don't think I've ever had that conversation. I mean, it's always like, you know, that kind of thing, and then it stops right there, you know. But we never actually had the conversation because I can't, to be honest, I don't think we ever got that deep with that kind of stuff. And like I said, I moved here a long time ago, away from, you know, all of that, things that I was uncomfortable with, and to get in touch more with my Black side. Because like I said, I was raised as a Samoan kid, you know, all the way up until 18, 19 years old. So, you know, I just got tired of it, and I just wanted to experience something else. So I never got into all of that. And then, like I said, you know, my mom, a lot of family members would check whoever was doing it, and it was usually someone from the outside of the family who would do that, or, you know, sometimes it was you know, people very close to the family, but that was one of those things. Like I said, you kind of put that I put that self-defense mechanism up, and it's like, oh well, he don't mean it like that, she don't mean it like that, you know. But I never had that conversation.
Yeah, I feel like, for one, growing up, I think I was always a little bit more outspoken than was like culturally appropriate. I was definitely always the one that was kind of causing the ripples by trying to speak up. And so I don't know. I think because I did that and I created that like profile of myself, I think my family kind of drowns me out sometimes. Like, oh, here she go again. And like my dad, even now, he'll always say like, oh yeah, my daughter. He'll explain to other people because I do it in public too, where he'll explain to other people like, yeah, my daughter always tries to be politically correct. Even then, I'm like mumbling like, or just a decent person, but. But I think sometimes it's hard. I know we had the conversation a little bit before about the N word, for instance. When I think about how to address anti-Blackness, I think that's the number one thing that comes up in my household and in spaces that I share with my family is the N word, and it's hard. Even like again, I learned meuli and what that meant 6 months ago. And I remember screenshotting, and sending it to my mom, like, what do you think about this? And she didn't really have much to say. Like, I feel like the conversations was just like not really engaging. And because of that, there's a certain energy in the room that I feel like is deflated. So when it comes to like actively addressing it, it is, a toss up of like, do I even do this right now? Like, if we all sitting around and it's a holiday and everybody came over and we ate and we chilling and somebody happens to say it and it's like, I peep it, don't say anything. But then if it continues to happen, and I think of it in that way that like, if you don't say anything, then that like opens the floor for it to continue to happen. And I think I'm in a space now, probably for the past 4 months, where like I'm finally learning how to say it. And of course, I think the burden is figuring out how do you say it so that someone listens to you versus
right.
calling it out. I think that's the skill I didn't really have. I've been speaking out on a lot of different issues in my household, but I've never had the skill of like, calling in versus calling out. So I've definitely have witnessed what it looks like to for people to feel called out and then they're out, they exit.
And they're out, yeah.
Now they're checked out.
Yeah. Will, how do you feel about the use of the N-word in the Pacifica community?
I think it's weird, but I'm used to it, only because I grew up and that's just, people were using it. But as I got older and, and then moving over here, because if someone were, one of my cousins were to come here, I'd tell them, that's not accepted. You can't do that here. And like you guys were saying yesterday, Dacia.
Dacia?
Yeah, Dacia. That pass don't go everywhere. You can't just do that. So, and I was thinking about also after, we had our conversations, like there are other words Samoans could use, and actually because Vietnamese do it, just about every ethnicity that I know, they throw out the N-word like it's nothing, So, but if just focusing on our community, Samoans, there are other, uso, all of that. If you walk into a room and you just see all black people or black and white people or whatever, and everybody's throwing around uso, how would you feel about that? It's like it doesn't take very much for someone to be like, man, you can't do that. You're disrespecting us and all of that, and not this, the N-word is a great word, but a lot of people have said, look, we've taken that word and we've done this with it. There's a whole lot of layers to that word. And it means so much. It can be a term of endearment. It can be a way of me calling you out and saying, this and that. There's just so much to it. But just having that empathy and just knowing like, okay, look, if I took your stuff and I try to do something with it, and then a lot of people try to make excuses for using it. I'm speaking about Samoan people now. You can try to make excuses for it, but just let's use a little empathy here. What if I start using your stuff? Like, there was this a post that I saw, and it was just a young African girl. She just said, all she said was, "I love I love Samoan culture or something like that. And she was dancing. She, she had on a lava lava, and she was doing Samoan dances, some Samoan music, and they were going in on her, and all. That's all. She was just she didn't say I am a Samoan, I want to be a Samoan or anything like that. She wasn't disrespecting. She was, as far as I'm concerned, paying homage. It was a tribute. And then there was another guy, and he had the tattoos. And you don't know if he's half black or what. All I saw was he had the tattoos, and they were just going in. So using a little empathy, it turns out he was half Samoan. But even if he wasn't, that's just like if I'm here, I am Samoan. I don't know anything about your culture. I don't know anything. I'm just coming in. I'm just gonna start using this word. That's not for you to use. You have to get, and if you are allowed to use it and the people accept you to use it, okay, then, that's your group, but it, like she said, it doesn't go everywhere. You just can't go around saying that, and just like, yeah, if you want to say uso and all of that, I guarantee you just can't go anywhere and just be like us this and us that. And and a black person walk in there, you hold up, why are you saying that? They're gonna get checked real quick.
I think
so.
Uso also doesn't have the same negative connotation.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because I know that at least here in San Francisco, they'll say it to guys, girls, or whomever, like, "Oh, you're a us," or they'll say "uso," right? And I guess it depends on whoever it is that is being addressed. If it's somebody you're familiar with, you're like, "Hey, what's up? What's up?" Right. But I think, like, sometimes, like it said to me, like, "Hey, what's up, us?" I'm like, "What's up, carnal?" Like it's like an exchange of culture type of thing. But I just wanted to also say that, like, it doesn't bear the same weight and the same.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't have all of the layers to it. It might be a bad example, but my whole point was you just can't use other people's stuff,
right?
And just feel like, okay, it's okay, and then now you have all of these excuses why you should use it, and be like, well, you do this and you do that. Okay, well, it's not your stuff. You have to you got to get permission to do that. So.
I think it was a good example too. It was a good example.
Okay. Well, yeah, some people, I mean, you gotta explain, but I'm at the point where I don't go into all of that explaining anymore. But it's that was the only thing that I could really come up with, is this: you don't want anybody taking your stuff, and then you don't even fully understand it, and you're out here utilizing it, but you don't really get it yet, and then so you can't be upset if this man is like, no, I'm offended by that. You have to understand, because if I took your stuff and I said, I'm gonna start wearing the Eat Lava Lava to Walmart, and it don't mean nothing to me for real like that, was it looks disrespectful to me as a Samoan, because you just walk around with an Eat Lava Lava, you ain't even tying it right, you ain't even, now you're gonna take it and then now you want to wear it as a scarf or something. You're not doing it. That's not how you do it. Right. So, and it's just empathy, just take it and flip it before you start doing what you see what they do just because you saw it on TV or whatever. Flip it around. Do you want people to do your stuff like that? So, and I'm in the middle, me, Teyonna, it's like, you Black and Samoan, and I grew up and I see people doing it. It's kind of like, how do you, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, how do you address it? So it's like, wow, okay. Growing up, I didn't know how to address it. And then even now, like I said, I've been here for so long, like usually I'm just like, I'll say what I have to say and then I'm up. You do what you do, and just don't step on my shoes. That's what they say out here in the country. So do what you do, but watch my shoes. So, and that's
what
just
you do, but watch my shoes.
Right. It's about empathy. You empathize, period. So
that's a real song, right?
Yeah, I forget who.
Do what you do, but watch my shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what it boils down to is empathy. At least that's how I took it. Do what you do, just watch my shoes.
Mm.
Okay, Jim. That's a Jim.
Okay, okay. What about you, Teyonna? What comes up with you when you hear that word around family and friends
I think
that are not Black?
I think that's like the thing, right? When it's family and friends, it's like I'm very against anyone non-Black using the word. And I think that's the thing that's become complicated now, is that we've opened the gates, right? And as the gatekeepers, I think like Black people aren't even like totally set on who gets to use it. And how I see it is like, until we figure out amongst each other like who's gonna use it, then we don't even need to let anybody else into that conversation. And yet, like Will said, how do you address it? Like I grew up as both, and I also had an understanding very young that like, ooh, like if my Samoan cousins were to get around my Black cousins and say that mess, like, but like, that never happened. I never had to do it, but I would reflect as a kid, like I would have to warn them, like, don't like, and I think that's the thing, is that I don't think a lot of people mean harm. But I also think that's kind of the problem, is that there's a lack of recognition that's where the word comes from. It comes from a place of harm. It was always meant to degrade Black people. And so I do get frustrated when people make certain excuses. And that's not to say that I'm not patient, right? Like I totally understand what it feels like to try to break a habit. I just feel like that's a really nasty habit. And at this point, and this is very new for me because I've never really even figured out how to address it. But I've been talking a lot with my younger sisters since, all of this has started up, and it's become kind of the forefront. And my sisters were actually just telling me that 2 weeks ago, they were in the presence of some family of family, but in Samoan culture, everybody's a cousin, and we can get into technicalities, but they were around family, and there was some cousins who I think they grew up in like Compton. And so they always gonna say it, and I've been in that situation too, where it's like I wanna say something, especially when that actually happened to me not too long ago, where I was getting a tattoo and I had my boyfriend with me who's Black, and my tattoo artist just kept dropping it, and it's like I'm looking at my partner like, so like, because he was kind of like, wait, is this cool? Is this what's up? And so I think even from that perspective, like I never want people that I love to feel how I feel, right? Like I feel like I can't say something, or I feel a little uncomfortable, and yet I think unfortunately that's what a lot of Black people go through, is just kind of sitting through uncomfortable situations and not really knowing how to address it, and feeling like they can't address it without stepping on other people's toes. And like you said, well, like, you stepping on my shoes, I like, if somebody's stepping all over your shoes and you can't say anything to them like that, that's not a good feeling to have. And so it comes back to empathy for me too. Like, and again, I'm not saying that I don't have patience for it, but I think if I make it known, then I would appreciate the respect. And I'm also not saying that I'm gonna police everybody. Like how I feel is like, what you do in your own home, that's what you do in your own home. If I'm around you, I would appreciate you to not assume that I'm okay with it. And if you know me and I'm not okay with it, then that's definitely where I feel disrespected. And it all just comes down to like everybody wanting to be better. I think, again, when you're truly ignorant, if you don't know, and which is what was happening when I was a kid, right? Like nobody had the language, nobody really had the insight into like, this is a problem. But now we do, now we grown, and now we all see it, and we have access to the internet, and like at some point you got to grow up and you got to take part in the conversation. Just because you've always done it doesn't mean that you were always right either.
Right.
And I think that's the problem, is when people get away with something for so long. Yes, it's hard to break out of, but There's a lot of other things that, you know, as people, as humans, as adults, we adapt to. And I think this is just something that, because more awareness is being called to it, people got to adapt. If you're not willing to adapt, then you got to own up to that, and own up to, you know, that you're going to continue to do something that's a problem, but don't act like it's not a problem.
Right.
Right.
How I feel.
Yeah, I definitely.
Also,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, and people act like being able to say that word is just so important, you know, especially, and coming
Right.
from the
I
Samoan,
need it for my life.
I have to do it. But it's like this: if you can't speak your language, if you don't know the culture, the things that you know, if you don't know what's going on back home in Samoa, if you don't know why things are going the way that it is over there, and you're just so oblivious to all of that, there's so many other things to learn. Those things that I just named are ways you can direct your energy to, and then you don't have to, you know, you're so worried about saying, living, I just got to say this word. I gotta say it. But direct your energy toward that, because you know what, the Samoan culture is so rich and it's so powerful. Like, there's a guy here there's only one other Samoan here, but man, he has so many people that just love him because he's so, you know, he's a loving guy. You know, they probably still don't know what a Samoan is. A lot of people still call him Hawaiian or whatever. But I mean, he, you know, he has people walking around with Aima shirts, and you know, they don't even really know. All they know is family. And you know, we're a team. We're a football team. We do this and we do that. You know, and they want to do hakas and stuff. There's little bitty kids walking around doing you know, doing the hakas in the middle of their you know, their football games and stuff like that. You know, there's other things you can do using your culture to, you know, to give to the world. And instead of just, oh, I got to say the N word, if you can let me say that. You know, there's just so many other things. And Samoan culture is so rich. And it's like, you know, I just want to tell everybody, you know, when they want to get into that argument or make that an argument, man, learn your stuff, learn your own stuff, and then use that, and then, you know, say that so people want to do that. You're so busy trying to learn this over here, and you don't even understand the history. You don't know about Jim Crow. You don't know about the Tulsa bombings.
Exactly.
You don't know about all of this stuff and that word is in the middle of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just want to say the word. How about learn about what's going on in Samoa, and how about learn about, you know, and you know, and make people want to do that instead of making people want to do this, you know.
Even learn about that history, right? Like you brought up a very good point. Read up, like really consume and digest that information of the struggle for the past 400 years for the Black community. You might have a different a tone or approach at wanting to say that word.
Right.
And TT, you said something very important, and I want to just be vocal on this space. And we're pretty vocal. We're open and honest about like ourselves, right? Like that is work. That is anti-Blackness work that I'm doing within myself to stop using that word, right? And because I grew up saying it, grew up around it, of course, and when I got into those spaces to learn more, it's like, yo, I will also own the fact that like I'm not perfect. It'll come out, and then I'll stop myself in my tracks and hold myself accountable. But I don't do that every time, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like I'll make note of it in my head, and I'll just keep, you know, wanting to do better. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that like it's a process. You know what I mean? It's a process. We gotta, if we just stop fighting it to be like, oh, I have to say this word, you know, it just tastes so good. But you could really like do the work to stop saying that, or like if it comes out, hold yourself accountable and just you know, acknowledge it and move forward, you know.
Exactly.
Right on, y'all. So just I know it was brought up a little bit earlier too, and we just want to have a conversation, especially because Afro-Tainted has been such a huge voice in our Pacifica community about getting rid of this word meuli and reintroducing the word that is appropriate and that our people do use to describe Black folks as tangata uli. And so I just want to hear from both of y'all about like how the word meuli lands on y'all and this whole conversation around bringing tangata uli into the forefront.
So you want to go first?
I'll go first. I want to say that like I learned from y'all. So I think it was Will and his video shared by Afro Teyonna. And I also listened to a couple of the her podcasts. I also listened to an episode, I believe, for the Cultures, where you brought her on, and she talked a little bit. It was a similar conversation that we're having now about Black. I think it was Black appropriation in our culture, and ever since, like I've also been, sharing that. And I shared one of Will's videos not too long ago, and I had like 3 Samoan friends who popped in and were like, "Thank you for sharing this. Like I didn't even know, no idea." Hopefully, I'd help Will gain some followers. But yeah, I think I probably have more experience because I'm more around Samoan folks who aren't speaking the language or don't really speak it in the spaces that I'm in, like saying the N-word versus saying meuli. But it's something that I am ashamed to think back and think that, again, maybe not purposefully and maybe not, because they are actively trying to be anti-Black, but to just recognize how much ignorance there is amongst other folks who just don't know the history behind the word. And then even, as you tell them it's inappropriate, you tell them it's wrong, it's incorrect, they like don't have, whatever capacity to grasp, like, oh, let me change it. Everyone that I've sent it to, they're like, oh, really? Dang.
Right.
Well, I always use it as slang, and like it kind of like bounces right off of them. and I think that's where I've always seen it as like, because I'm Black, I feel a greater sense of urgency to address that. And so, if anything, for me, I think just in general, it's frustrating to feel like others, can empathize and also hop on feeling that urgency. It doesn't feel right now that anyone is treating it with the same energy and the same passion of like, yeah, we really got to get rid of it. But it seems like, and because I had that experience, it seems like something that not even a lot of people are aware of to begin with.
I just wanted to share a quick story. I have an uncle, my auntie's married to a Creole man. They both recently passed, but he loved our culture, right? He really loved our culture. And I remember being a young person, and he was big on language, and he broke down what the word meant, right? He broke down, "Mea uli means Black thing. I'm not a Black thing. Call me tangata uli." And we would look at him and be like, "Okay, Papa, whatever," just like kind of brushing it off. But it wasn't until, of course, being older, and of course, when Daisha became very vocal, and it was like a conversation we were having, it was like, it really started to sink in, like, damn, have we been saying that this whole time? And so the reason why we wanted to get your feelings on that is because that's a big conversation that we're also having in our community, that has very anti-Black sentiments associated with it. And so, again, what you're saying, right? Empathy, the biggest thing that we can have, and also doing the homework, doing our history for non-Black folks to build up the empathy and really be better.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to get into what's happening right now, right? Black Lives Matter. It's not a new thing. You know, it popped off when Eric Garner, or was it Trayvon Martin? I think it was like 2014, right?
Michael
And,
Brown. That's right.
yeah. So it's not nothing new, you know. This time around, it's definitely more folks are hopping in, more, you know, more allies, more conversation, more everything about it. We want to check in with y'all to see like what's coming up for y'all with everything happening around Black Lives Matter. You know, what's coming up spiritually, mentally, physically, whatnot. How is everything impacting y'all?
For me, with Black Lives Matter, so not only just, you know, the, you know, more like the white community, but just period. I always have to say, okay, are you talking about the Black Lives Matter organization, the Black Lives Matter message, the Black Lives Matter, you know, it seems like every time a message comes out that's positive from something like this, they want, when I say they, I'm just, you know, I don't know if it's like the right wing or whoever. It's like people want to divide up everything and then make it seem like, you know, like, for example, like when they say the Black Lives Matter organization, they're out here, you know, they're basically terrorists and all of that. Hold up, Black Lives Matter. That's all I'm talking about. I'm talking about the message. Black lives matter just as much as your life matters too. You know, so it's always a diversion. So before, like, you know, I get into all that with other people, I was like, well, what are you talking about? Because all I'm saying is Black lives matter too.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this stuff is coming up when everybody comes together. It's because they see, okay, you kneeled on this man for almost 9 minutes on his neck, on his throat. You wouldn't have done that to nobody else. All we're saying is Black lives matter too. So then someone else comes in and be like, oh yeah, well then, you know, the group does this and they're terrorists. And I don't know about none of that. I don't know about any of that. All I know is my life matters too. My kids' life matters too. Black lives matters too. So I always will try to clear that up before, you know, getting into that space, because then it's always somebody, even on my page, they'll come in, they'll be like, oh, George Soros. Oh, who is George Soros? Or whatever. I don't know. Oh, it's the guy he's a left wing and he owns, you know, he's a left millionaire, billionaire guy. I don't know about none of that. All I know is Black Lives Matter too. What are you talking about? So people always try to mix everything up. So my bad for going all over the place, but
That was
that's
great.
No, you're
yeah.
good. You're good, bro.
But that's what they do. You know, it's like
Yeah.
that's like the strategy.
Like Bert.
Yeah, yeah. And so then when you look at the news, even me, even with my stance, I'm like, oh wow, that is some terrorists. Why would they do that? But okay, now just think, if I had that stance and then I look at something and I'm like, okay, yeah, well, you know, they're confusing a whole bunch of people, you know, and distracting from the message. The message is Black lives matter just as much as your life matter. That's it. I don't know about all the rest of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Period. And I think this time people are understanding that, okay, yeah, that, you know, man, and they saw it. The dude kneeled on, you know, he was on his neck for a while. It's so hard that now Kaepernick is cool again. You know, that's how hard how hard he did that. You know, because I mean, even the president was like, "Oh, that," and then he retracted his statement, talking about, "Oh yeah, he should get another chance at the NFL if he's worthy of it." You know, he still threw him under the, you know. Don't get me started on
Let's
that.
not go. Let's not talk about 45.
Yeah,
Okay. Let's not
yeah,
talk about 45. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. That's straight up.
No, that's important. I think when I think about Black Lives Matter, I'm thinking about activism and all the ways in which it shows up. If that means you're out there protesting, that means you're out there protesting. If that means that you're having conversations like these, that means you're having conversations like these. If that means that for, you know, for once, finally, maybe for the first time, you're actually reading up, you're learning these people's names, you're learning history, you're signing petition, whatever that means for you to be involved. Like, that's what I think of Black Lives Matter. And I can admit that I haven't always been this vocal. I can also admit that when I was vocal, I was kind of on like a all lives matter stance at one point. Black Lives Matter happened my freshman year in college. And I was coming from like what I now understand to be a very conservative part of California. That actually blew my mind when I learned that California is actually a very conservative state. Some of my political science friends broke that down to me, was like, it's just these really populated urban areas in California that swing the state the other way.
Yep.
And I was like, no wonder.
Hella pockets.
I feel like every other place I go to in California, kind of suspect.
Hella.
And so I grew up around that in my high school, and I've just, privileged. I was privileged enough, I think, even in, living in the military, where things, even in the military, like military bases is kind of not the real world.
Right.
I never knew civilian life until I got to college. I was literally a military kid.
As little people, as little civilians.
Civilians.
The village.
I didn't even know the people, like when I said that for the first time, people were like, civilians? Like, I was like, I guess that's how I used to grow up talking about y'all. So yeah, I never knew it. So I don't know. I think both being sheltered and also unknowingly being influenced by the grown-ups around me. I definitely took part in that way of thinking for the longest. And I don't think if I hadn't have left and gone to college, become educated, like really started to see things for myself at the time that I did, like who knows what wave I'd be on right now. Because, I think, again, me being outspoken, I like took that home to my family, and even like to my Black dad, I'd be challenging some of his thoughts, and challenging some of the things that I felt like he was also, simply saying because that's the news and the media. I think that was another big thing that I learned, was to not trust anything that was on the news, and
propaganda.
So, that's why I really was just falling for the okie doke and was in the simulation. That's how I feel. So it's exhausting, like everything that's happening right now. It's like there's something new all the time, and I think social media is both like a beautiful, like powerful blessing, and it's also it's so easy for people to manipulate. It's like people, I think, a totally different conversation, but like internet literacy, especially within communities of marginalized peoples, is a huge thing. I get so tired of people sharing, and seeing something kind of go viral within my own circle. I'm like, y'all, that happened 5 years ago. Like, can y'all just like read the read the date on the article before you even start sharing it? Yeah, I don't know. There's so much happening, but I think for me, like Black Lives Matter and what comes up for me is that urgency. It is a need for people to recognize, to reflect on how they've contributed to a society where that even has to be said at all. It's
Right.
crazy that even has to be said, that it took people to watch a man die. Even that, I'm just like I've been throwing around the word psychopath, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm like, y'all, there were some real psychopaths that it really took that. Like it really took that for you to feel bad, for you to really like think back on all the.
As hard as people go to say the N-word, they go as hard to not defend Black lives, to not value Black lives. Like, oh God, I feel you.
It's a lot. It's a lot right now.
I think one of the key things I heard you say is that, like, you're tired, and I've heard that too from multiple folks, Black folks, all over social media, just saying it's tiring, So, it's been 400 plus years now.
Mhm.
And the reason why we want to not only unpack and hear your experiences, hear your thoughts, we also want to hear your recommendations, your suggestions, like y'all have been doing, where you're encouraging and challenging folks to build empathy, right? To do their homework and learn their history. We want to ask y'all, for you, yeah, right? What are some key actions allies within your family and your community, for example, us, what can we do to be in solidarity? What can we do to be in community? What can we do to be better? Shit, because we failing. A lot of folks are failing, and even us, like as conscious as we think we can be, and we always want to make sure we're on the right side or doing the right thing. We're liable to fuck up too, so. And what's important is that your recommendations, what y'all want to say, not only to us, but just to everybody who's watching this, are key things for us, because we can't just put our heads together as Pacifica folks and be like, okay, this is what's good for Black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We gotta tap in with our folks that we already have relationship with, that we're in community with, so that we can see, okay, what is it that we can do?
You want to go first, Will?
Okay, I will. Well,
spin the wheel, spin
for
the
that,
wheel.
I mean, we already said it. Like, I just think use your energy to learn about your culture and then the history of it, because when you look at that, it's not too different from Black culture. I mean, yeah, the locations are different and all of that, but when you talk about, the disenfranchisement, the putting it being on a lower scale, the colorism, all of that stuff, it's the same. It's the same. All of these things are the same. So instead of just focusing on the surface, just trying to, I just gotta say this word like we talked about earlier. There's so many other things that you could be learning about. And then like when I hear about, like the kid that got stabbed over gang culture. Why are you doing that? Where did you learn that from? There are other things that you could be picking up on. Don't tell me about blood and crip if you don't know about the Be'a and all that other kind of stuff. Don't go all the. There's just certain things that you
Hey,
should not be.
bro.
You should not go there if you don't know about your own stuff. That and then blood and crip. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. It didn't start off to be a negative thing. That's because Black people did not have nobody to protect them. So they said, okay, well, we said we're going to protect ourselves. Okay. And then this gang, and it wasn't a gang, it was a community group. If you don't know that, don't talk about blood and crip in that
About
fashion.
some COINTELPRO, bro.
Right. You're talking about them as if they were a gang. It didn't start off as a gang. It started off as something else. Polynesian Panthers. If you don't know about Polynesian Panthers, don't talk about Blood and Crip. Don't talk about none of that other stuff. If you don't know your own, disenfranchisement and racism that's happening with your own grandmama and your own granddad and all that kind of stuff, they have those stories. Go find that. Use your energy to go find that.
Yeah.
Figure that out. And then, like I said, and I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to, I want everybody to know Samoan. Go figure your language out. There's just so many other words that you can learn besides the N word. Okay, call each other uso, call each other us, call each other pule, whatever. There's other things you can be doing besides just saying the N word. So, I don't know how people are going to take this when they see it, but,
Oh,
I
well,
forgot the
that's
question,
it.
man. I'm going off.
You go off, Wolves. Go off, Wolves.
I forgot what I'm talking about.
Recommendations, bro. What we can do to be better. What we can do.
Learn your history.
Yeah.
Learn your history. Learn your culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then spread it. spread it to the people that you know, because it's infectious. It's so rich. It's beautiful. People want to know that. And then when they see you, okay, people see Samoans as big, strong, and they're athletes and all of that. Well, use that to your advantage. And if you can't think of nothing else to do with your size and your speed and all of that, use all of that to your advantage and just let everybody know, okay, look, this is what we do with our size and speed. It ain't all about we're gonna run you over and do all of that. You know, we grew up with these fields and all of this land, and we were kings and queens on our own stuff in Tonga and Samoa and Melanesia, Polynesia. All teach them that. Then you don't have to go off into all this other stuff. There's so many other things that you could be doing besides where the media leads you to. Stop watching all that TV. I forgot the question again, man. Don't let me go off. So look.
You're good. You're good.
Learn your culture, spread your culture. Learn your language, spread your language. That's really all I got to say. Because I don't argue with nobody with whatever it is. I like I said, I say my piece. And then if you can't respect that, I'm up. I'm not gonna debate with anybody about my experiences, my things that I had to go through in life. It is what it is. It made me better. I said it. Now, okay. But and I hope, that's it. Yep, we're late.
Do what you do, but watch my shoe.
Watch my shoes. That's what the late means. When the late, do what you do, watch my shoes. Gonna set you violent.
I love sleep a eh?
It's funny is because that's really what Afro Teyonna right now on her platform, on her social media platform, that's what she's saying. Like, you guys don't need to ask us the answers to anything. Do the research. Everything is either on a book, on YouTube, or Google. You don't need to find someone who is Black or just go do your research. You'll figure everything out on your own.
Right.
So yeah, just to kind of go everything that you just said, it's like it's important that we do the research. Do the work. The work is
the trail. You'll see the trail, right? Like I love that you brought up Polynesian Panthers, because if you're gonna learn about the Polynesian Panthers, you'll definitely see where that came from, right? The Black Panthers, right?
Right.
You'll see how, and I love that connection is made there, because it's a way of illustrating that our freedom is tied to each other, right?
Right. The walk is very similar,
right?
Yeah. It's very similar. So yeah, if you do your research, you're gonna find out. Okay, man, the empathy it should develop just because you just find out. Oh wow, it's we have the same walk, just in different places in the world. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Right on.
Yeah. What comes up for you, Teyonna? What are some key actions allies within your family community can do to be in solidarity?
I'm somebody who, and I've been trying to be better at this too, but I feel just really deeply about, I guess meeting people where they're at, understanding people's capacities, and then, I would hope for everybody that they really take to heart, that you extend a little beyond that. Like, you allow yourself to be uncomfortable and sit and reflect in it. Because I think the big issue for me, and what I feel when I'm having conversations with people in our Pacifica community, is this intimidation or fear or hesitation to do something that's out of their comfort zone, or to do something that they don't know, they've never learned, they've never done before. And I think we just gotta grow out of that. We gotta get beyond that. And I tell people all the time, like, all of these folks who are outspoken, that they're spreading the message and they're sharing it, none of us are perfect, and none of us also started this way. And like, it's just like with anything else, you got to start practicing. You're never going to know how to address it in your family if you don't start, you know, if you don't go through that uncomfortable conversation with an auntie where you say something and she, you know, pushes back, and yes, that's uncomfortable in the moment, but then you take that and you learn from it. And when it comes up again, you say it again. Maybe you try a different tactic. Maybe you try something else. But like, I feel like at this point, you should feel that urgency. You should feel, you know, that you owe it, just to humanity. You owe it to the next generation. I think as a people, we're very, you know, we're very oriented around family, around legacy. And I think like we should really take heart to that. Like, you know, is this a world that you want your kids to grow up in? You want your kids to be out here in the streets protesting like this? You want your grandkids to be, you know, like that? You have to recognize that this fight is even bigger than just some of these names that you're seeing. It's bigger than, you know, these buildings that are being, you know, torn down, burned down, looted. Like, it's bigger than all of that. And there's so many ways. I think there's so many ways that you could be fighting this. And I agree that it's tiring for Black people to feel like we gotta have this conversation over and over and over. So yeah, like, look it up. If you have the capacity to look stuff up, go look it up. Which for me, and I get on Instagram and I say this all the time, like, if you're watching this, you on a phone, you're on a device, you got internet.
Yeah.
Use that privilege and go do something with it, right? If you have the capacity to sit and have a conversation, to sit and talk, you know, there's also privilege and a blessing in that. If all your family members are around you, like, take the opportunity and sit with that blessing and use your time to educate people, and really drink it in. You know, if you don't agree, if things rub you the wrong way, then I think like you really owe it to yourself to sit with that uncomfortability and figure out why. Figure out why it is that it bothers you so much, to see people behaving in this way, to see people, you know, this language and the things that are brought up. Like, why does that bother you? You owe it to yourself to figure that out, so you can figure out what to do about it, right? So, yeah, in terms of what to do, so much, but it takes the individual person to really like reflect on what their capacity is. And at the end of the day, it's like you should do whatever it is you have capacity to. And I think everybody has the capacity to listen.
Yeah.
And if that's all you can do, you know, is to actually listen and listen to the people within the community and what they have to say. And just continue to want better. Maybe today you listened, tomorrow you spread it.
Yeah.
Today you listen and next week you spread it. Maybe it's today you listen and tomorrow you share it with someone, and then you have a conversation with someone else. Like, how do you feel about this? Like everybody at this point should feel like they need to be doing something. I feel like that's the only way that you go wrong, is if you're not doing something. But you can't get stuck at doing just that one thing. And I think that's also the part that's been frustrating, is people being like, okay, I shared the petition. Like, you want me to do more? Like, yeah, you got capacity to do more today? Do more.
Right.
Like, there's a laundry list, a long laundry list of stuff.
It's not just one thing. but it helps. You know, like the one thing helps. But there's more.
Right.
It does.
More.
Yeah, I think people really just got to take responsibility and reflect on like what it is that you've done. If you've never done anything, yes, doing that one thing, good job. But like, keep going. If you did that one thing, you've been doing one thing for the past week, like, how about today you try two things? How about today, you got to keep pushing yourself into that uncomfortability, because that's the only way you grow. It's like, I don't know any other type of growth that happens without getting uncomfortable, or without getting a little bit ugly first. Right. And I think people really conveniently forget that when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah, I know on your social media, Teyonna, that, you were very emotional You know, there is actually a recent video where you were you broke, like, just breaking down, just really crying and being vulnerable about the things that are happening, not just in this world, but also directly you know, within your family. And I just kind of wanted to ask Will, like, how is it? Is it hard? Do you find it difficult to be to share your emotions publicly about the issues that are going on right now? Like with anger, sadness, do you find it a little difficult to express that side of you on your platform? Not saying that you should, but I'm just asking if you find it difficult.
Well, I guess so, only because like I'm trying to keep it to one thing. Like I'm only doing these things because like people have been asking me for whatever reason to go there with it. But like it's yeah, I mean it's kind of hard because there's always a balance. Again, I'm trying to balance again because you know I have kids watching me. Like I didn't know so many like babies. Not I say babies like five to 10. They watch me, and I didn't know that until last month or so. How many young children watch? So I try to watch my language because I try to take my platform on different ways, and I was experimenting, I was doing like voiceover type stuff but it was inappropriate for kids. My main thing right now is I just want people to learn the Samoan language. So if that's my goal, but then all of this stuff pops in after that, it's like, I mean, it was always there, but when it comes to the forefront and I'm moved to actually say something about it. It's like, how do I say this and balance between a 5-year-old kid, and then trying to get through to a 65-year-old person who've been saying Meuli all their life, so that's what I've been dealing with right now, on top of just trying to, get everything together because I'm reorganizing as well. So it has been, all of this has been a challenge for me, and it's challenging right now because every day I try to write for everybody, and when you try to meet everybody, you're gonna lose a lot of, especially at a time like this when it's like, I really want to speak to this particular topic, but that's not my platform. It right here, but I don't really have any other platform. I'm not on. Well, I'm on Facebook, but I'm not active on any other thing. Platform. So it's like I'm trying to balance myself. At the same time, I'm so passionate about what's going on right now, and I want to say some things, but it's like, how do I say all of that and keep this level of respect and for the children, and at the same time, I really want to tell this 65-year-old woman, stop saying, man. So I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot going on,
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
I haven't figured it out. So it's a daily task.
yeah. And you don't have to have it all figured out,
Right.
That's just a question that, I just was like, I felt led to ask because I know that, just with the whole stigma of just, Pacifica men are not really ones to really show their emotions and, be very vocal when it comes to addressing topics like, of just things that are happening in this world. So it was just, it's just a question that I just kind of wanted to get your insight and perspective on. But yeah.
Men are the worst. I'll say that because I know guys that I went to school with, and they are, a man is their pride. If they've been saying this for so long, they don't want to just be like, okay, what, I was wrong. It was, I shouldn't. I mean, there are a lot that have told me, okay, I'm not gonna do that no more. But then there are these others. I know some straight Trump supporting, all the way, but I say the N word, and then I'm all the way hip hop at the same time. You know, they're like all the way left, all the way right. I just want to do my own thing. I'm just straight Fox News. I mean, they're hard to understand, but then at the same time, they don't know those things that I was talking about. They don't know their history. They don't know their culture. And but you're so all into over here, into what Black people are doing, and then you don't even have that right. It's like I kind of feel sorry for them, because it's like, you know, where are you? Like, what are you? Define yourself. And if I were to ask these people, I bet you, you know, they couldn't do it. So, and it's mainly because of pride. It's mainly, you know, well, I was going to say because you're a man, but no, the male pride. It's mainly because you're a man that has this pride and, ego. And that's like the weakest thing in the world, right? The male ego is like, something's wrong with,
toxic.
you know, yeah. The male ego is like the downfall of just about any man who think he has all of this stuff, and you don't. You know, figure that out, break that down in yourself, and then get stronger. But you want to hold on to that, and a lot of them do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, let me give you guys. Yeah. Let me give you guys kind of like a wrapping it up question. You know, just in the midst of just everything that's happening in this world, how do you make time for joy to care for yourself? I'll go with you first, Teyonna, because Will gave such a winded answer on the last question. I'm gonna let you catch your breath.
The muscles started to come out.
Yeah.
I made a face because I feel like I've been telling myself the past, like, it feels like months, but it's really been maybe the past 3 days, 2 weeks, where I'm like, I really gotta start doing stuff that makes me happy again. And as much as I know that, like, but this is over here is more important. I think I'm someone in general, like I said, like I truly believe like growth happens outside of your comfort zone. And I think as a person, I'm always pushing myself to that point. Anytime I am feeling kind of comfortable, I think I'm the type of person that gets a little antsy anyway. But with that being said, finding joy is important. I think finding joy as marginalized folks, as Black folks, is resistance in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, I think stepping back, and I think it's kind of hard now to find the content. I think last week I was watching a whole bunch of like Wild and Out videos, just like trying to find something that's kind of meaningless but will make me laugh, and reaching out to other people. You know, I'm someone who also has lots of long conversations, and in those conversations we'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll get angry together. But I honestly I feel like letting it out has been the most helpful, and sometimes letting it out does lead to joy, sometimes it leads to sadness, and sometimes it leads to feeling kind of defeated. But I don't know, I think it's important to feel all of those things, and to let that be a part of the journey. But I went like grocery shopping the other day, and I told myself, like, you know what, it's payday, get whatever you want, sis. It's bad because I try not to keep snacks in the house. But every time I get upset, which again, it's bad because I feel like it's every 5 minutes, I'm like, I'm gonna go eat some Doritos. Like that's how I'm resisting this. This is gonna make
Cool Ranch. Eat that Cool Ranch, sis.
What about you, Will?
Honestly, the stuff that I do every day with the Mako, the language stuff, that's really it. Like every time, you know, like I just got a message over here. Usually it's people like, I love what you're doing, you know, keep doing it. That keeps me going on. Other than that, it's like, you know, I don't know. I don't really have at my old age. It's like, what do I have?
Calm down, Oz. You ain't old.
What do I have to motivate?
You definitely don't look old, bruh.
Oh, thank you. You know, I want my kids to do better than me. That's for one. And then number two, like, you know, I just found something that is just straight fulfilling, like all day. Like all day you get messages. I mean, there's other people too, you know, that say bad stuff, but for the most part, that washes all of that out. You know, I love what I'm doing right now. And I've never had anything that is more fulfilling than where I'm at in life right now. Even though I've always, in my professional life, my career, I've done what I wanted to do. This right here is like, and I wasn't even planning on this. Everything else I planned, it was like a scheme. I came up with it because I was, you know, surviving, trying to figure something out. This was just like, I'm gonna do that. And then I started doing it, and then it was like, man, I didn't plan it, nothing. This makes me happier than anything. Well, not
Does it give you a sense of purpose?
Exactly. And I wasn't planning. It's just a straight. I mean, I can't even describe how great it feels. It's awesome.
Okay, I need to know this one thing. What kind of car are you sitting in when you're making your videos? That car looks fire. What car is that?
Oh, it's a Jeep. I got it.
It's a Jeep. It's just a Jeep.
Yeah, it's a Jeep. It's a Jeep Wrangler, and I took the top off, and I only drive it in the summertime. So it's like I
That's a nice car.
Thank you. I customized everything, and so now the people. Yeah, they see me with it, and I'm looking like,
car.
Y'all want to? Well, we can say that. Yeah, it might be that, but you know what? If I were doing that right now, if I were in these streets like that,
baby girl.
But I'm not. But I'm not. I just drive, you know. I
could be.
And you be driving like O-Dog when he's pulling up.
Right. I see you looking, but I don't even acknowledge.
Why you over there looking at me while my girl standing there?
Right. Even if I'm by myself, like I said, the experiences that I had in life, you know, not before I got where I'm at right now, I won't even try. Like I had to, because before I started doing this, I was making a whole lot of money. And then I came and I started doing this. This isn't even about the money, but I'm happy. And but yeah, so I was able to get all of that other stuff from that, you know, from my last venture. Yeah. So you know, maybe this will go there, but what I've learned is that I've got enough now where I don't need all of that, because what are you gonna do with money? All I did was give it away. You know, you give it to family, you give it to everybody. We go to
Well, my Venmo is at Bex right there, okay? That's my Venmo. If you're feeling generous, at Bex Bumble.
All right.
Matter of fact, drop y'all Venmo. Folks need to pay y'all for this conversation.
For real.
Yeah, I mean, for real. Like, you know, it was just like that. But see, that was the previous. That's how I got everything now. So it's like, you know, maybe it'll get like that again. But before, it was like, it felt great to just go eat with your family and just be like, you know, I got all of their stuff too. That whole table over there, because that lady smiled at me, you know. Or like, you know, we went. I took the kids over to what is that, Denny? Yeah, to Denny's. So this guy, you know, he was kind of talking to us condescending, right? And you know, I was like, oh, he brought us a coupon. Now, I didn't know if he was trying to be funny or not. A lot of these people just think, oh, okay, or here goes a black dude. He got 4 kids with him, you know, and he might, you know, in his heart, he might be, you know, trying to be generous. But at the same time, I kind of felt like maybe he was like, oh, wow, you never see a black dude with some kids. No, people do this, you know. So I was just like, you know, when I went to the front, I said, pay for all of their stuff over there. That's to me, that's a better feeling. I paid for everybody that he brought.
Okay, Daddy. Okay,
well, yeah.
Daddy.
Well, no, it's not even like that. And I don't even want to say it like I'm talking like on that
level.
No. I never had it like that before. I never had it like that. So when somebody comes and yeah, when they come treat you like that, you know, at least, especially over here, it felt so good to just be like, you know, I got all of this. So when I tell you that doing the stuff that I do now, and someone sends me a message and say, man, you know, my mom didn't even teach me this stuff, and now I learned that, it feels better than that. Yeah. It feels better than everything I just told you. When somebody comes and discriminates, feels like, you know, at least me, I felt like I was discriminated against, and someone comes and be like, you know, oh, you poor Meuli or whatever. They didn't say Meuli because they white and from the country. Right. Or you poor that. That's how I felt. That's how I felt in my heart. So when I turn around, I'll be like, okay, yeah, buy all of these stuff, and you know, I pay for that, and then don't even tell them, because I don't care if they know or not. And I really felt like that. But the waitress goes over and says, oh yeah, that the black dude bought your stuff. You know, that felt it, you know, and so I'm waiting out in the Jeep. And then I pull off. I mean, that's ego too, you know. I'm still human.
Right, yeah.
Okay. It's your heart. It's a big heart. Like, you prove a point that you're better than that.
Yeah. And so I mean, it's a lot of stuff, you know, that you're trying to unpack while you're doing it. But you know, it's just like,
it's a lesson. You taught a lesson.
Yeah. So it's
a lot.
It's stuff I'm learning about myself. But I guess long story short, because I always say long story short because I'm telling a long ass story. But I just want to say,
Will, one last question. Can you please
finish?
Wait. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I forgot what I was talking about.
Okay, my last question. Can you please stand up and show everyone your virtual interview outfit?
No, because now I took that off too.
Will, do it for the culture.
You're gonna get ratings for this for the wrong reasons now.
For the culture, Will. Show them the virtual interview
for the culture.
Now you need my Cash App.
Okay.
Will,
hey, if y'all don't know, Will's got an OnlyFans.
We should turn this into OnlyFans.
Right. If I stand up, you're gonna need my Cash App.
No, I don't want you to stand up like that. I want you to show the virtual interview outfit.
I don't have no more outfit now.
Oh,
no. Remember when I went to the bathroom? That was
You left the ear in the bathroom, man.
Right.
It's the breakfast food. Well, she want to see that. I mean, well, that's her.
The ear is right here. I just came back in, so I cannot stand up. Straight up. You gotta edit all of this. All this gotta go edit out.
You know what? Well, the visual right now is just
the imagination is.
Thank you.
Just edit all this out.
Nah.
Yeah. Nah. She gonna trip.
This is for the cultures.
I'm not saying that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, y'all too much. Okay. We got way off of the we're here to talk about anti-blackness.
Right. Remember, 5-year-olds follow me now.
Groupers.
Help us, Lord.
There you go. So we know.
Get us back on track.
Yeah, we know that we've been having such a fruitful conversation. Of course, this is a conversation that does not end here. It matters when we have these conversations in our homes amongst our loved ones, and it's not going to always be in harmony. It's not always going to be in balance, but we just keep chipping away and keep having patience and empathy. We got to do better as Pacifica folks for our Black family, for the Black community, because our freedom, our liberation is tied to theirs and vice versa. And come on, man, we Pacific Islanders, we people of the ocean, the biggest foundation of ours is love and respect, and so all of that to say, I just want to thank y'all for your time and your energy to be a part of this conversation. Thank you for opening up any wounds that you had to open to have this conversation. We are hopefully the laughs and, we continue to build that can patch it back up. But we just want to give you all the floor to say any last thing, any last thoughts to our viewers before we get up out of here.
Ladies first.
I'm filled with gratitude, and love. This was something that y'all don't even know I needed today. Today was particularly hard, and even though a lot of these conversations can be hard and they can be a lot, I appreciate how much love and intention came into this conversation, and I think it's a great, this platform that y'all have and all the different conversations that y'all have on here. I love tapping in and learning new things and just that energy of learning and wanting to learn more and being very, very intentional about it. It's such a beautiful thing that I can honestly say amongst Polynesians, amongst Pacifica folks that I've been around, it's refreshing and it's new. And sometimes it makes me sad to think about it that way. I've never experienced this before in this way. But at the same time, it just makes me so hopeful that the bigger these platforms get, the more that we spread. Exactly, what Will keeps saying is to learn and then spread that. And I'm so hopeful that for generations and generations to come, we all just continue to come together to use each other to learn, and as much as it's true that you shouldn't rely on Black folks to do the pulling of all the weight. I'm going to speak for myself in this, but as a bridge, quite literally a bridge between the two cultures. I know I personally, I feel obligated is doesn't have the right connotation, but I feel that that's my purpose too. To me, that feels like my God-given purpose is to continue to be that bridge, and I want people to be open and honest and vulnerable, and to lean on those resources where they are. And I'm just so grateful that I'm seen, and I'm seen as that resource for so many people. And there's no group that I would rather do it for than this one. So I'm just appreciative that I'm here.
I see you, TT.
Right. I thank you guys for your platform, and when Teyonna was talking about the bridge, it's and maybe it shouldn't be looked at it this way, but when in terms of how I grew up, we talk about 100% Selapa and Samoa, and then you got the Afkasi, and then you got Black Lives Matter, or Black people or getting behind that movement. It's would it even be the same sort of power or the same sort of effectiveness if we just cut out for the cultures and me and Teyonna was just trying to tell Samoans? I don't think it would be, it wouldn't be that, because we need that bridge. You guys are the bridge, and although we're the same, everybody doesn't look at us as the same. And I think that's what this whole meeting was about. We are not looked at as the same for everybody. Like I said, the younger generation, they got different eyes. They have different understanding, and it's much higher than, in terms of this kind of stuff, much higher than the older generation. So without you guys, we wouldn't be able to convey the message as effectively. So I thank you all. I really appreciate your platform for the cultures, you and Bex. I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
We definitely couldn't have this conversation without y'all, and with so many other folks. Thank you so much, y'all. Pana?
Yeah, I'm thankful for you both. I appreciated the conversation that we had last night, and even up till right now, everything that we spoke about. I really wish we could have had that conversation we had last night, because that was super unfiltered, but this one was just as good. But I'm grateful for you both. I really admired the light that you both carry on both of your platforms. it's really, really, it makes me happy to see both of you two show up and represent both sides, you know, and you guys do it very well. And I'm grateful to just know you both individually on your platform and off your platform. So yeah, thank you both for taking the time out to really sit and have these uncomfortable conversations. And yeah, and Will, thank you for just, you know, taking off your shorts and not, you know, wanting to just, you know.
Edit that out, D-boy. Something.
I feel like I can go to sleep.
Oh, man.
Edit that part out.
Oh, man.
You know what? I was thinking to myself, I was like, because Danny Boy tried to segue into like closing, and I'm like, how do people stay focused off of that, having that visual of Will sitting there butt naked? How does he close it?
That's how we're going to get more followers.
It's 1 a.m. over here.
Yeah, this guy got to go to bed, y'all.
The bed right there.
It's Will after dark.
You're a full-ass married man. Hey, I'm not trying to disrespect you at all. I'm
having fun.
I
mean, you know, we're queer anyway.
the gag is.
The gag, right?
But we love it. But yeah, no, thanks again. Thank you both very much. I learned a lot from you both. And
awesome.
I'm just really, really, really just, I'm so grateful that I get to call you both individually friends now, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
How can
hit me up anytime.
Bye. Hit me up anytime.
I'm also.
How can folks get, and how can they tap in?
Oh, you talking to me?
No, we're talking to your shorts that you left in the bathroom. Of course, we're talking to you.
Right. Yeah. Just hit me up on Instagram. Amuuso, AMUUSO. Instagram. Yeah. That's the only place I'm at is on Instagram for right now. Download the app on Apple and on Android, the Play Store. It's called Mako, MATOU. And Samoan language. And then also too, if you want to do like this right here, the Zoom Samoan sessions, we're gonna be on Teachable platform. So you can go to Teachable and just type up Mako or type up Samoan lesson. It's the only Samoan lesson on. Actually, I think the only online Samoan class that I know of. So just type that up and type Mako, and then you're gonna find you'll find me. So.
How about you, TT?
You can find me on Instagram. This is I'll do it. You know, what's the word? Caveat. A warning. 5-year-olds should not follow me on Instagram. But
5-year-olds should not have an Instagram. Okay.
That part too. But do not bring your 5-year-olds to my Instagram. But my name on Instagram, Teyonna.Michelle. So my first name, TEYONNA. .Michelle. Instagram is where I'm most active and also where I'm most likely to engage with people that I don't know. So, you know, always happy to engage with people that I don't know. So, yeah, hit me up. Love having these conversations. And if this sparks anything for anybody at all and they want to talk, I'm happy to be that resource.
Just come correct, y'all. Don't get at her sideways. Don't get at her disrespectful. And don't get at him. That's a married man right there. That's a man, but that's a married man.
With little cheering.
With little cheerings and stuff, okay?
But that's still.
We can dream. We can dream.
Y'all are silly.
Okay, y'all. Don't forget to tap in with Will, OnlyFans, /Amuuso.
You're editing this out, right?
For reals? Come on, man. We're just having fun. We're just poking fun a little.
Hola,
ligamos. Yeah. All right, y'all. So we up out of here. Thank y'all for tapping in. Build empathy. Do your homework. Learn your history. And learn other folks' history. And be better.
All of that.
We out. Maybe